This program is brought to you in part by Shaw TV. The Enlightened Mind is brought to you by Design Jewelers. Diamonds for the Millennium.
It's the dawn of a new era, the new millennium, and across the nation the Government of Canada is working in partnership with Canadians of every culture and of all ages on projects and events celebrating our history and heritage, our arts, our environment, the aspirations of our youth, and our passage to the next 1,000 years. Join all Canadians. Take part in it. Take pride in it. Canada and the Millennium. Sharing the memory, shaping the dream. A message from the Government of Canada.
Welcome back to Design Jewelers, The Enlightened Mind on Shaw Television. I'm Bob Layton. My guest for this segment is Y2K webmaster Dave Loblaw. He's had a website up now for several years, warning that the Y2K hype was, in part at least, a hoax. We're going to find out tonight what was real and what was an invisible monster. So stay by your phone because this is your chance to find out what the heck happened or didn't happen on New Year's Eve. What was real, what was a lie, so that the next time you won't get caught, because we've still got the scaremongers on the line. Still got scaremongers emailing me regularly, telling me that the other computer shoe has yet to drop and we're yet going to get left in the dark. Dave Loblaw, you first got involved with the Y2K situation how long ago?
It was in 1997. I worked for a large computer company across Canada, and we knew we had to stop our programming work and deal with the Y2K issue. Go through all the code, look for date fields, and test it. And that was fine. All the programmers, all the computer people knew we had to do it. They knew the premise of it was true, that some computers may have a trouble with the year 00. We did it, we were finished, and we thought that'd be the end of it in 98. It kept going on, and it kept going bigger and bigger. Once as higher it got into management and then government and everything else in the public, it just got this monster that morphed way out of control, away from the basic premise, which is just a date field issue. I mean, it was like a big issue, but it was a very simple problem that was time consuming, and programmers had to get pulled off their projects to do it. They did it, and then we just were stunned that it kept going on and on. And for that reason, I created my website to say that this is mostly a hoax. And the best part of my site, it's justanumber.com, it was a joke. It was just a number. That's all the Y2K thing was. But it became more than that. It was survivalists came out. The religious people came in. But the apocalypse, it just morphed from a simple but lengthy computer issue into this massive monster.
Back in 98, when you were doing this dateline issue, as you call it, did it appear to you at that point that the banks and the utilities and the things would be ready? Did you see any problem then?
None at all. No, because I knew they had all their computer people looking through the code, checking it. What they would do is they have all the computer programmers that have sort of a mirror site, and they changed the date on that to December 31st and various other sites, other dates, and see what would happen. If there's problems, they would fix it. And that's all it was. It was a very simple computer problem.
It must have been very frustrating for you to be fixing a simple problem and yet to hear on the news constantly that we were going to freeze in the dark, that our RSPs were going to disappear, and that all of this was going to happen.
Actually, it didn't annoy me at all. I was highly entertained in the last 2.5 years, and I say so on my website. And the best part of the website, where I assumed only friends and a couple of colleagues would look at it. And right now I've got over 100,000 hits on it, and I've got over 4,000 emails in the last 2.5 years. That became the fun of it, because there were so many people who were just calling me insane, and I'll be responsible for the deaths of millions of people that aren't going to prepare, and it just was crazy.
Sure. So just to get this absolutely clear now, you're saying the dateline issue was legitimate,
yes,
and all the rest of it was the hoax.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. What Y2K is just, as I said, a date issue to find out where all the dates are and see if they would work. Y2K suddenly became synonymous with computer problems, any computer problem, and there's always computer problems every single day. Today, every single day, there's always horrendous problems everywhere. And Y2K is not a computer problem. It was one tiny little computer issue. It was a computer, like I always say, it's It's $1 million computer issue that morphed into a multi-billion-dollar industry based on people's fears of computers, which people are afraid of computers.
All right. You're watching The Enlightened Mind. Our guest tonight is Dave Loblaw, Y2K computer programmer. This is your opportunity to find out what was going on. So if you've got some more questions for Dave, please give us a call. Get involved in this conversation so that you don't get caught next time, because the scaremongers tell us there's another computer shoe yet to drop, and there are more things going to happen, and we can still freeze in the dark, depending on who exactly you want to believe in. Now, as this Y2K thing progressed, I too got tons of email, and I had people accusing me of causing an air of complacency, and they said I would be responsible because I wouldn't jump in and scare people. I'd have people call me and demand that I go on the news at Chad and tell people that they were going to lose their RSPs, and I just refused. It seemed ludicrous to me. So now that this is all over and nothing happened, I kept track of all these people, and I've emailed them all back and said, so what happened? Well, if you're watching, you know that you didn't have the courage to email me back. I've not heard from even one of you. Not even one has stepped forward to say what happened. Now, you got 150,000 hits. Have you contacted any of these people?
Of the 4,000 emails, I probably at least half, maybe 3/4 were against me. And I'm still waiting for some to write me back and apologize. Actually, I have had only 2 in all of the thousands, and I'm just amazed because they were very polite, and they just said, you know, they knew they were played the fool, and they apologized, and I thought that was an amazing couple of emails that I got.
All right, we've got Cindy on the line. Hello, Cindy, are you there? We'll try it again. All right, that one isn't working. Now, you see, that was obviously a Y2K problem right there. The computers have just kicked in. I'm just trying to make the people feel a little better who are doing this. Province of Alberta spent $250 million upgrading computers. Y2K situation. I see in the paper today, Stockwell Day is suggesting to some of the software companies or whatever that he should get some of that money back. What do you think?
I think it's impossible to get any of the money back of all the worldwide. There's all these numbers that have been thrown around from $100 billion to $800 billion that we spent worldwide. It'll never be able to get the money back because was the perfect hoax, because the Y2K scammers won every which way. If little things happened, they said we didn't get enough money to fix it in time. If nothing happened, they all the praise on them that we fixed the problem. So right now, it's impossible to actually get any of this money back. A lot of the emails that I'm getting now since January 1st they're wondering whether there should be Y2K litigation against a lot of the Y2K people trying to get the money back. And I'm saying it's impossible because you'd have to prove that if they didn't do anything, nothing would have happened.
Sure.
And it's an impossible, you'd never win that lawsuit. And that's why I've always admired the people that made money in Y2K, because it was a perfect win-win-win-win situation. They'll never get the money back.
All right, we've got Cindy back on line 1. How you doing tonight, Cindy?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Good. Have you got a question for our guest?
Well, I do, in a way. I just want to say that I think the computer people that have been working on this Y2K did an excellent job in preventing it. And if they didn't, well, it's one of those things where you pay money for prevention. And I think the minister that wants his money back, that's ludicrous, because then maybe the rest of us should all get our money back in taxes that we feel we're not getting our value either. And to the computer people, maybe they knew what they were doing, and obviously they do know, but the people that were fear-mongering themselves, that's what they did to themselves. And I think, yeah, he's right, it was an issue, it was a date issue. I think the majority of people understood it, but the vocal people are the ones that didn't.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your comment. Good evening, Steve.
Hi.
Hi, do you have a comment or a question for our guest tonight?
Well, I've got a little bit of each, actually. I wanted to know, you're right about the software issue, but what about the embedded chip issue?
All right, now, just before you get into that, Dave, I want you to answer that. But a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks before New Year's Eve, we had Wayne Wood on here from the city. And we had a number of emails from people telling us, what about the embedded chips in the natural gas pipelines, that they would all shut down, and found out that there are no embedded chips in natural gas pipelines. That again, was another big lie that we had been fed. Now, what about the rest of the embedded chips?
Well, embedded chips, if the people that don't know what it is, it's like it's not software that you can reprogram. It's like a salt. It's right into cement. They couldn't change it. The main thing that you had to look at, is there a date issue in it? Did it have to and they said embedded chips on elevators. Like elevators will crash to the ground on January 1st.
So, well, do those have dates on them, those chips?
That's what everyone had to look at, and most didn't. If you were designing an elevator that goes up and down, the doors open, why would you have a date in it? Why would you have why would it care what year it is? And all these programs, I asked every single time, what's it got to do with the date? And a lot of the electrical systems in hydro had nothing to do with the year, because it's mostly a daily program. Because at 7 o'clock we throw in all our dishwashers, and so it's a daily, and it doesn't matter whether it's year 99 or year 0. It had nothing to do with it. So the main thing, especially embedded chips, had to always ask why would it have a date in it? Okay. And most didn't.
All right, now Steve, did you have a second question?
Well, actually, I had a comment on that. I just wanted to know what his take on it. Actually, a lot of electronics need a time synchronization, and there are a lot of embedded chips. And yeah, I mean, even though an elevator, if it had a date-reliant embedded chip, and if it malfunctioned, does that mean it's going to crash to the ground? Now, you're taking something which a lot of people who understood the embedded chip issue and said there might be a problem, you're taking what the doomsayers say, the extremists. I mean, you have the people saying that God is going to punish us on New Year's Eve, we're all heathens. Does that mean we should stop going to church, or start if we're not? You're taking something which was a problem, and you're using extreme examples of what people said the end of the world kind of scenario is going to happen to say it's a hoax. And this is very wrong, because the embedded chip problem was a real wild card. Because a lot of these time RTC synchronization chips, which synchronize electronics so the next pulse can keep coming on, of course, though the electronics can keep working, we had a problem with them. And the problem was that you didn't know what was going to happen when a chip went online and tried to do something it was not designed to handle, and that is to roll over to all zeros. So what was going to happen? Well, it's as easy to predict as walking up to a roulette table. Black, it doesn't work, it freezes, it crashes, the electronics malfunction, or probably just freeze up and stop working, which with the best of my ability, I could guess what was going to happen with it. Or red, in the embedded chips that are RTC chips, real-time clock chips, they roll over nicely, there are no problems.
Right.
So what we were trying to do, when a lot of people, including myself, were doing a lot of compliancy testing, we were trying to paint the black numbers to red. We were trying to hedge the bet. If black came up, then we've got some preparedness. We have some plans in case the chips fail.
Okay, I understand your point. I understand your point, Steve. I appreciate it. We've learned a lot about this program, if nothing else. Hello, Joe. How are you tonight?
Hello, Wilbur. Not too bad, not too bad. I just wanted to ask basically a question. I mean, this is like almost a non-issue to me, because this is the type of knee-jerk reaction that happens almost literally continuously with all the big issues that you may see on TV or hear on the radio. People always have this reaction to things that they really know very few facts of, and yet make obvious and sudden assumptions of things to be. And it happens almost daily, on a daily basis. So I'm surprised. Is this really surprising to you that this here would happen? I mean, really, is it a surprise?
What do you think, Dave?
I guess it was a surprise there was that many people really fell into it, because the 99% of the websites out there in the last couple of years of Y2K, they were always either fear-mongering or said, something horrible could happen if we didn't do it. So I can see how it just, like I said earlier, just became a life of its own, that people did get scared of it because people are scared of computers, and that changed. Sure. Y2K became fear of computers, which it's not.
Yeah.
But this kind of fear is prevalent in our society. It's not just in computers, it's everywhere. And I think that not only big business, but governments, they exist, and they actually prey on this kind of thing with the public continuously. That's why I basically almost laugh out loud almost at the TV when I sit there and see something, and I say, well, gee, I really wish I knew more of the facts before I start making any kind of real determined assessment of what's really happening here.
Sure. Well, remember, Joe, that there were those of us who questioned this right from day one, who demanded the facts and got just a lot of rhetoric in between. So I'm glad that there are people like you out there. And Joe, when you hear things like this on the media, when you hear the next scare coming up, phone and question, especially if it's a talk show and they have some nut bar on, phone and question, demand to get some better information.
Actually, that's what I've been doing for years, and people think I'm a nut bar for questioning so much.
Joe, don't give up. You and me will be nut bars together. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
I think the reason I didn't buy into the Y2K thing from the beginning was just sort of I'm a skeptic. And I took a look at the profits the banks were making, which are at best described as obscene, and I said, would the banks do anything that would stop them from making all of this interest, that make them lose a penny? And it didn't seem to me that they would. You take a look at the presidents of the major utilities. Would he want his job gone? Would he want his head to roll? I just couldn't see it. I just could not believe that it was going to happen. Now, the programmers who are now trying to save face, still on the line, and they're saying, well, just because nothing happened New Year's Eve, that's not it. That's not it. We still got February 29th. Something big could happen. What about that?
Actually, it's not the programmers that are trying to save face. Most programmers knew this was just a simple issue that they had to fix, and they fixed.
Okay, maybe programmers is the wrong word.
Yeah.
These are supposed computer experts. You never know when they're mailing you something, how good they are.
Yeah, and then they convinced management and other ones, and that went on over. But now they don't want the golden goose to die, which it did on January 1st. Now they're doing February 29th, the leap year, because some old programmers when they designed their programs, didn't think 2000 would be a leap year, so there's no February 29th. But when all the Y2K programmers that went through the code, we had a bunch of different dates. It was December 31st, 99, January 1st, 2000, the 29th of February, September 9th, 99. We had a bunch, and so we had test beds for all of them, so we checked out everything. And any Y2K programmer worth his salt would have checked all of those. So if there's any problem on February 29th in any program, and especially since now they have 2 months more notice, they should fire all the computer people in that organization if there's any problems on February 29th.
There is another aspect to all of this. At the end, close to the end of December, Prime Minister Chrétien took to the airwaves and assured the nation that we were ready, that there was not going to be a Y2K problem. He says that out of one side of his face. Then he says, but we're going to have key government ministers in their offices all night long. Now that kind of leaves people in a little bit of a turmoil, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. But I don't think they had any choice in doing it, even though they probably had all the information at them, knowing there was going to be no problem. It's public perception. And Y2K became this public perception nightmare that no matter what they did, people would criticize them if they weren't prepared. We didn't have the army on standby. We didn't have all of this, and so I sort of feel for the people in government and in major industry, especially the banks. They had fixed this problem years ago, but people were still saying the banks were going to collapse and we're going to lose all our money. And they had to send little statements and saying that we're Y2K okay. But imagine knowing the problem was a big problem that was fixed, but still being criticized by everyone constantly to the last very second when they knew there was never a problem.
I know a fellow who works for a major utility in Edmonton who, at the height of the Y2K thing, sold his home in Edmonton, moved his family out to an acreage, and did everything he could to be self-sufficient. Even though his own company told him that there was not going to be a problem, he still was so deeply into this thing that he just could not let go.
Yeah, there were some programmers in Wired magazine, I think about 2 years ago. They had a profile of 4 or 5 major programmers who had sold everything, and they were Y2K survivalists in bunkers in Utah and all that. And that was just surprising that at a programming level they would do that, since they would probably know what would happen. But I guess they just got caught up with the 100,000 websites on the web saying that there's going to be an apocalyptic disaster, even though their own technical knowledge said otherwise. I don't know. It was like mass hysteria.
It was amazing. I can't wait to see what happens next. Dave Loblaw, Y2K programmer, thank you for coming in. A very fascinating time visiting with you tonight. You're watching The Enlightened Mind on Shaw Television. We'll be back with our next segment, MLA Rob Lougheed, right after this.
The Enlightened Mind is brought to you by